Here are the mechanics for murders at Karlov Manor. Now, first up, we have a returning mechanic, Investigate. Investigate has been in Magic for a very long time, and basically just means make a clue token. Now, clues do seem to have a lot of precedence in this set, with a lot of payoffs for sacrificing clues and a lot of payoffs for drawing cards. I think clues are a very powerful artifact, and we see them often, and pretty much they're always good. Like Fateful Absence, that one only works and is only fair because you get a clue, which means you get a card. We are also getting Disguise and Cloak, basically a reworked version of Morph and Manifest. By paying 3, you can put a creature with Disguise down, and it's upside down, and it's a 2/2 with Ward 2. Then you can pay its Disguise cost to turn it face up, or with Urtrada, you can pay 4 to turn it face up. Now, this only works for creatures. You can also get a permanent face down as a 2/2 with Ward 2 by cloaking the top card of you or your opponent's library. A cloaked card is also the same 2/2 with Ward 2, so pretty protected, and eventually you'll be able to cast it maybe, or maybe you'll just keep it as a 2/2. We're also getting a lot of good support for these face down things, which hopefully brings Morph back into the eye of Commander. Coming to Murders at Karlov Manor, we also got Collect Evidence. Now, Collect Evidence will be followed by a number, which tells you to exile cards from your graveyard with total mana value equal to that number or greater. Now, this is an additional cost or just a cost. It can be used for ward, it can be used for additional cost, it can be used as like a cost to activate abilities. It's just like a cost like a mana value or a tap would be. So, like activated abilities could be triggered by collecting evidence. And I think this actually is very interesting because it's kind of like almost against what was going on with Lost Caverns of Ixalan, trying to fill up your graveyard. But there are some cards that work very well together with like the collect evidence and filling up your graveyard like you wanted to do in Ixalan. So these are very interesting to have like in 2 sets right next to each other. Like good ways to fill up your graveyard and like descend payoffs and also collecting evidence. So we'll see how this plays out in Standard. We also got Suspect and Suspected. Now these are 2 versions and 2 wordings of the same mechanic, but when you suspect a creature, it becomes suspected. A suspected creature has menace and can't block, so it can be a downside for your opponent if you want to suspect one of their creatures, or it can be an upside for you. If you're playing aggressive and you want to get some menacing creatures on the board to stop people from blocking very easily, you can totally suspect your own stuff. Now, to remind you that something is suspected, there will be markers in the packs, but these are not counters, it's just a reminder. We're also getting a new enchantment type. This is a case. It's formatted similar to class enchantments with the art on the left and the text on the right in a column. Now, the first thing is a static ability. When you cast this and while it's on the battlefield, the first ability will always be active, even once it's solved. Then, to solve it, there will be a middle ability. This will be some sort of requirement that if you've met it at the beginning of your end step, the case becomes solved. This one will also have a reminder token, but it's not a counter. It is just there for reminding you that that case is solved. Then once the case is solved, it will have an additional ability for you to use. You can still use the static ability at the top, but you'll get an extra one at the bottom. Now this can be anything from like drawing extra cards, tutoring, basically any ability in the game could be this ability. Now, this really isn't a mechanic, but they're bringing back artifact lands. And based on how disastrous the last time they brought back artifact lands was, I'm surprised they're doing this. Now, this isn't nearly as good as the other ones because this adds colorless at face value and enters battlefield tapped, but it's also a clue and can draw you cards and trigger anything that cares about clues. Now, we have a lot of good artifact synergy right now. We had All Will Be One, Brothers War, Wilds of Eldraine, and Lost Caverns of Ixalan all have huge artifact synergies. So basically, this artifact land better be played in pretty much every deck. You can easily increase the power of your Cephalopod Sentry from All Will Be One, and we got affinity cards in All Will Be One. Now this counts towards affinity, it's an artifact. This can be tapped for Sunshot Militia, or count towards your artifact count for Thousand Moon Smithy, making your golems even bigger. Notably, Urza's Command and the new Karn Both create constructs, which are 0/0s that have this same ability. Once you're done with this land, you can also bargain it away. You can tap it for mana to cast a bargain spell, then sacrifice it to pay the bargain cost. This is actually kind of insane because so many of the bargain cards see actual play in like the competitive levels of standard on Arena at least. And having an artifact land that you can just always bargain away is just awesome. This land also counts for any artifact enter the battlefield abilities, which there's a lot of them that are quite playable in standard. So this is just a free artifact basically for any of those. It's also a free artifact for anything that says craft with artifact. This counts as an artifact. If it goes to your graveyard, you can still use it for craft. You can use it for craft on the battlefield. It can help pay for its own craft cost because it taps to add mana still. And you can even tap it for colored mana with the creature ability, so I don't even think it's that much of a downside that it only adds colorless. Like, it adds all colors of mana still. So you can tap this, use the mana for a craft ability, and then boom, you've got a new huge thing that you should have had to sacrifice another artifact for, but you just used a land. Now, this being both an artifact and a land, it does have a downside. It's now a land that can be destroyed by targeted removal for artifacts, but I think the upside for having an extra artifact that you can use for crafting, bargain, pretty much every mechanic that's come out in the last couple years, it outweighs the chance of you losing it to like a farewell maybe. Like if they choose artifact on farewell turn 6, you've probably already gotten enough value out of it that it's worth the risk of running it in the deck.